Hi, everybody. We're almost done in a good way. Get ready for the weekend. And I guess we missed the tornado, so that's good, too. A little northeast. So we're going to talk about a couple things. I kind of view this as, so I have 4 kids, and one of my kids, she loves Bruno Mars and The Weeknd. And I always tell my kids, The Weeknd is like the new Michael Jackson, and Bruno Mars is like the new Bobby Brown. And I played Every Little Step You Take by Bobby Brown, and I convinced my sophomore in high school that that was the new Bruno Mars song. And she got in the car with some of her teammates that I carpooled with, and I said, this is the latest Bruno Mars song, and they heard it and they loved it. And you know, that's a song from like 1990, right? So sometimes, and I love my SDRs, we have like 470 of them, but and the managers here know, they like to think sometimes they reinvent the wheel, but they are doing some things new, and that's what we want to talk about today a little bit. Maybe there's some things that they're doing new, or what's working that's not working, or maybe it's an oldie but a goodie. And I've got 2 badasses here. These guys know this better than I do. They can talk about this stuff too. So, want to weigh in, Mr. Parrish?
Sure, appreciate it. Somebody stole this right out of our prep call. It was going to be so punchy. You guys were going to be so impressed. My opening line is, what's working? Nothing and everything. And the answer is that not one single thing will work. There's no silver bullet, obviously. You got to do the things that will resonate with your personas that you're going after, with the companies that you're going after, the industry that you're going after. You have to deliver the message that they want to receive. And we can get into a lot more depth and detail on that. But it's a multi-channel approach. It's not just emails. It's not just phone calls. It's not just text messaging. We can talk about text messaging in much deeper level, but please don't just text message. I heard somebody say earlier, text messaging out of the blue is a bad idea. It is a bad idea. There are times when you want to prospect with a text message, but just not out of the blue. So we can go much deeper on this, but somebody stole one from me.
There you go. Good.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. When I got asked to be on this panel, I rolled my eyes so hard my entire face bruised at this question because this has been something that's been discussed ad nauseum. And I thought a little bit more about it, and I was like, well, fuck, it's discussed ad nauseum because we don't know, right? It's like asking what type of shoe is best. I'm wearing cowboy boots. I'm from Texas. Like, this is a perfect application of this. If I'm running a marathon, these are the worst, right? So you got to understand what each individual channel is, what it's good at, what it's bad at, what its limitations are, and then apply that for that specific channel, for that specific audience.
It's interesting. I asked some people at memoryBlue what's working, and we have someone, Cohecity is a client of ours, and we have an SDR. She was hired by Cohecity. She sent 10 to 15, what she called high-quality videos a day, and she booked 4 to 5 meetings a week that occurred. I'm like, well, that's pretty good. So that may not work for you in a different vertical. It may not work for you depending upon your stick on the video, but for her, it was working. She still made her 100 dials and just the minimum of what we want her to do in those areas, but she was able to make that work. So, I mean, that's a great use.
Yeah, 100%. And that's something that we see. I'm in a lucky position where I get to look at what works at all of the SDR teams within our install base, because that's who we're selling to. And like the one metric that we can kind of see across the board is the higher calling teams do tend to book more meetings. That doesn't always directly impact into opportunity generation, pipeline generation, closed won deals. So, you take the good, take the bad, like what's a leading metric and what isn't. But what's really interesting is when I see discrepancies across channels. Email is a huge channel that everybody uses, and yet we'll see teams that have incredibly high click-through rates, incredibly high response rates, selling to very technical buyers. You'll see the exact opposite with people that are selling to what are kind of considered cupcake personas, HR, marketing, and sales. So understanding the individual application, we're easy. Salespeople
Right.
love to be sold,
That's
right?
true.
And so you see a highly technical product being sold to a CISO at a Fortune 1000 company, and they're getting a 5, 10, 15% reply rate. That's nuts to me, right? There's some disconnect there. So I don't think there is one particular thing. I think it's all about the application of how you do that thing.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Parrish?
Yeah, let's talk about phone calls for a second, because I think you're right. Every SDR leader would like to see their reps on calls, right? That is the way to put a name and a person behind the message. Email is very informal. It's very blind. You have no idea who's sending it. But once you hear somebody's voice, you can really connect with it. I tell our SDRs all the time that it's not the connection that you want, it's the voice that they hear sounding professional, delivering value, caring about what the person on the other end of the line cares about, right? It's about learning what is important to them and trying to deliver value or relieve pain on their side. It's not about pitching. It's not about, hey, we do this. We have 700 employees. We have 6 offices. Nobody gives a shit about any of that. They care about themselves and themselves only. So get right to that. Go to that, and that is your 30-second introduction when they pick up the phone, which is like, what, less than 1% of the time these days? But I tell our SDRs, and this I can debate this with anyone, I tell our SDRs to leave a message, because when they do, that recipient knows that they are a smart person who's delivered value, cares about them, and is delivering the right message to hopefully a willing recipient.
Yeah, so you guys might be picking up on the old school nature of that angle, which I completely agree with. If you're in sales development, a great many of those folks are going to go into sales. They might do other things, and you're only going to get good at selling if you get good at qualifying and discovery. You'll only get good at discovery if you're talking to people on the phone. So,
absolutely.
Anne-Marie, who's our video booking badass, I mean, I guess that's a lead. Anne-Marie, I don't really know if you're not talking to the person before and qualifying them. And I mean, you could do this for the rest of your career if you want. And for some people, that's how they roll. But I don't know if that's how you want to roll for the rest of your career. So it's working today, but it's not going to be working for you personally in the future, potentially, most likely. Anne-Marie's going to be mad. I was dragging her through the mud.
Yeah, I mean, you just have to be comfortable on the phone. I think that's the through line here, is if you're not comfortable talking to somebody on the phone, there's not really a future for you in sales, as you know, in this world.
I'd argue it's hard to just find professional success if verbal communication is something that is a skill that you're not working on, phones, whatever. Like, that is something that is going to be cross-platform, cross-functionally applicable. Every good leader I know is an effective verbal communicator. They're also effective written communicators, right? Like, it's not the right or the left hand, right? It's understanding how to use both.
Yeah, and I think a lot of SDRs, especially young SDRs, without a lot of training early on in their career, they love to hide behind the sequenced emails, the templates that you can send out. And there's some value in that for sure, because those are generally written by people who have really good written communication skills. I don't know that many organizations that allow their SDRs to write their own sequences. They generally send out things that either marketing or SDR leadership has written for them. And they learn that from an early age, right? If your first job as an SDR is just sending out emails, guess what? You're going to think that's what SDR sales leadership is, and you're not going to get good at that verbal communication. So it's definitely multi-channel. You have to be able to send good emails. You have to be able to personalize, which we can talk about in a second. But you got to be good at the phone communication stuff too.
I got a curveball for you too. Let's talk about something that no one's mentioned today, but it's kind of out there. We've alluded to it, and I'm seeing it on LinkedIn and when I interact with people who used to work at memoryBlue. And I guess what's working today, this could be something that may work to drive performance or to help get someone out of a slump, performance management. So I'm seeing people who are getting let go from their job, who I see them on LinkedIn. I'm like, wow, this person is a top shelf sales development professional. They're looking for a job. You have people who work for you. You have folks who may not be doing as well as they like. Have you guys considered, or you thought about what might work in terms of driving performance in a good way, potentially, right? Because the purpose of a performance improvement plan isn't necessarily to let someone go, it's to drive performance.
Yep.
Have you guys thought about that with what's going on in the economy right now? Because we're all probably going to start getting pressure from the top to show results, and we're going to come looking for answers. And I haven't prepped these guys on this. I didn't tell them we were going to bring this up, so.
I mean, it's part of the job, for sure.
Yeah.
And look, when times are tough, and times are tough, right? One of our lead investors has been one of the people who has said, SaaS is still doing great. SaaS is not doing so great right now. When times are tough, you need to be able to be flexible in your plan, and you need to be able to see effort and attempt, not just results, because the results are waning everywhere. And so I keep looking back at our head of sales development back here. We talk about this a lot. Like, what is a reasonable quota to set for these guys right now and girls? It's not women, sorry. Habit.
You're good.
Yeah.
You fumbled, you got it though.
Yeah. Pick it up. We need to be flexible with them and their quotas. It's not the type of thing where you can set the plan at the beginning of the year, and somebody said this earlier, you're just going to achieve that plan perfectly all throughout the year. You need to be flexible in that. We have a 6-month rolling plan. So we don't even set our plan for a full year. We set guidance for 2 quarters out, and then we set the plan a quarter out. And that gives us the flexibility to do this. And we change SDR quotas. They've been going down because we know that times are tough.
We're not doing that. Go ahead.
Now, I think the other thing worth noting, especially in a downturn, is the importance of momentum. You need to, whenever you're generating a comp plan or a PIP or anything, it needs to be structured in a way that allows momentum, positive momentum to build. It mitigates the risk of as much negative momentum as we can. And that's just a human psychology thing, right? You get one win. One win begets 2, begets 3. We've all seen that. We've all felt it. You watch a sports game. You see that tide turn. You feel it in a sales cycle when all of a sudden that extra stakeholder gets in. You start to move things forward. Having a plan that reflects positive and rewards positive momentum and growing that positive momentum, I think, is incredibly important, especially when shit hits the fan.
It's interesting, right? So, it is what it is. The demographic of people in sales development tends to trend a little bit younger. So the last time we had a bad economy was 2010. So we had been in business we started in 2002. It was 2008. It was 6 years in, and we had 8, 9, and 10. We were down, and we lost money for 2 years. And I was like, shit, I guess I'm going to go back to being an SDR. And we have a whole industry of folks who haven't worked in a down economy. So it's going to be very interesting to see where this goes, because JR was talking about earlier, we all want to have A players on our team, and we know we can't just find them and interview them from the go. We have to develop them. But sometimes I think as things happen, we want to find the people who want to stay in the business, because it's a hard, godforsaken job, right? And you guys are good leaders, so you guys know how to develop people. But also for people who don't want to stay in the business, we have to help them leave gracefully. And the people who stay, they want to be around people who are going to try and make it work. So when I see what's working, phone calls, it says everything ? On our title. I think we have to start to figure out how can we performance improve people for the grace of them doing better, and then also for raising the tide to kind of get through what we're going to probably see. Who knows, next year may be a lot worse, is what some people are saying. I don't know.
God, let's hope not.
Yeah, I know. I'm like the dumber. I'm like just dragging everybody down. But what else? So what else might be working? Either day-to-day tactically, or even as leaders, how you meet with people, how your management meets with you?
I think it's giving your people permission to play to their strengths, right? Especially when things get bad. I had a guy on my team, he would make cold calls. This is when I was leading my first SDR manager role. He would make cold calls, and he would get to the bare bottom of what was acceptable. He was the top performer, and it wasn't because he was bad at cold calls and he did whatever. He was hyper analytical. So that's what he spent his time doing. He was able to find what was going to move the needle most effectively for him. He would craft these incredible vidyards where he would actually build out, this was when working at SciSense, which is a BI platform, he would build out demos of what analytics could look like for their company and walk them through it in real time. That shit worked, right? That was fantastic. He was like, I'm an SDR. This is what I'm sending to you, Chief Product Officer. And they're like, this guy who's did a comm degree from Georgia, I have a comm degree, I'm not talking bad about them. I'm just talking bad about people from Georgia. If his whole shtick kind of was if I can do this, what can you do with this, right? And that was truly his superpower, was being analytical and being able to actually function in that way. That wouldn't work for the number 2 performer, who was still well over 150%. He was a phone guy. He grew up in a boiler room. He was, his first job was on Wall Street, slinging deals in 2007. That's what he knew. And so he leaned into that. He would make 120, 140 calls a day, and he would talk to anybody about anything, and then demos would spin out of that, and he generated millions of dollars of revenue for the company from opportunities that he sourced. So I think giving your people permission to play to their strengths while you're also coaching up some of their weaknesses, places where they need to develop more, I think is going to be incredibly impactful and lead to far better results than always going for that square peg in a round hole.
That's a good point. Someone said that earlier about coaching. Let's say you should coach people too.
Yeah, situational leadership. I could not agree more. Personalization has been talked about a lot today, so I'll try to say something new about it, which is personalization is not just, hey, I saw you went to school at Santa Clara University. That's garbage. It's just throwaway personalization. Yes, it shows me that you did 2 seconds of research, but it's not relevant, and it doesn't make me interested in reading the rest of your message, especially when the rest of your message is garbage. So personalization is finding out something about that person or persona or industry or something relevant that you can tie your value proposition to. And I'm not saying you lead with your value proposition. Far from it, actually. I think good personalization is only about them and then wanting to learn more about how you may be able to help them. That's what good personalization is. I don't respond to a whole lot of cold emails or cold voicemails, but those are the ones that I do respond to. When somebody can connect a problem in my industry with something that's relevant to me and the things that I care about day in and day out, that's when I'll respond.
So that's something we always coach the difference to is personalization and relevance are different things, right? So understanding what's relevant, that you can do relevance at scale. Right? Things are going to be relevant if I'm selling to sales leaders right now. Odds are there's a lot of things that are relevant kind of regardless of what company you're at. Same thing for different personas. It's not that difficult, but personalization is kind of that next level. You can't do true personalization at scale, but you can be relevant at scale.
It's interesting. It used to be 100% manual. We used to record calls. This is how old I am. When we started the business, when I was in sales, I had a tape cassette, and you would wire the tape cassette to the handset, and it would sit between the handset and the thing you spoke on, and you hit record to listen to your call. I mean, to record it, and then you had to play it back, right? It was terrible. But some of these manual things instill discipline, and I still believe, even with all these amazing tools, and all those vendors are here, and those tools are awesome. And I wish I was smart enough to come up with a software company that automated these things, and it's AI, but I'm stuck just crushing the phones. But the theme, and Jordan, who's back there, told me this. It's you got to do the multi-touch. You have to do all the steps. It requires a tremendous amount of discipline, no matter what software tool you use. Either you have it or you don't have it. And I would argue that it doesn't matter what tool you have. The same level of discipline is required across all of it. So the discipline is what works. And if you're not going to do the discipline, you can buy your SDRs every tool known to man, but you're not going to be successful probably.
And a lot of people try that. Hey, we're just going to buy it all,
yeah.
Give it to them, and see if they can figure it out. And that is not a winning recipe.
Yeah. It's tough.
I think what you just said is especially relevant in that there's relevance for the person or the persona, and then there's personalization. So if somebody wants to prospect to me specifically, they might try to find something about me. I post on LinkedIn, you can go read those things, and that's generally what I respond to. Not that you should all try to prospect to me. But then there's relevance to the job role or the industry or what's going on, and that you can reuse. And those types of things you should, and we should talk about ideal customer profile in here too, because that is what's working as well.
We have 2 minutes. You're up. Keep going.
If the SDRs don't know who they should be prospecting to, if they're just going blindly, if you're just letting them loose with whatever, you buy them all the tools and just let them go, you're missing it completely. You need to give them a targeted list of people to call and the message to deliver. Persona-based, industry-based, seasonality-based, somebody mentioned earlier. These are all things that SDRs are just thirsty for. They will go and do it if you give them the tools to do it, but you gotta let them know where to spend their time, because if you just say, the world is your oyster, and they're 21 years old, they won't know what to do. And then they're gonna fail, and then you're gonna wonder why there's so much activity with so little results.
Yep. You get frustrated, get disappointed, get down to the dumps, and then you gotta put them on a plan.
Yeah.
Which you don't wanna do. So, I think that's about it. I wanna say one thing, David, thanks for putting this on. It's nice to get the community together. I will say too, I think we got to get more people out to these things. This is a big sales development town. We got to spread the word and get people out that we got to harness the craft and improve and educate ourselves, right? So we got to get back into the habit of doing these things. So David, thanks for putting this on, man. What's that?
This
works. That's right.
Before I let you guys go, does the audience have any questions?
Wow, we did a good job.
Yeah, I don't think any of us were nominated for a Beast Award, but if the nominations want to come in because they're so good.
Okay. Well, I do have a question for you guys.
Oh, wow.
So we talked about what's working, what's not working, how, what, why. So let's say you're a leader and you've kind of done the spray and pray approach a little bit. Like, let's hope this works. What would you say is the first step to get on the right path?
First of all, I'm going to say something that's definitely controversial in this room, that I think there is a time and a place for the spray and pray approach. If you are not going after your ideal customer profile and you're just trying to educate the market, as long as it's a well-crafted message with value in it and you're not being a spammer, I think that there's room for that. Now, you definitely don't want to do that with what Jeb Blunt calls your conquest accounts, right? That's your ICP. But if you are spraying and praying now, the first step to me is figuring out who your ideal customer profile is and honing in on that and focusing your personalization, your relevancy messages on those people specifically and really trying to get them interested.
Anyone else?
I see this with our early stage customers, seed companies, Series A companies who are still trying to define their ICP, is they kind of default to a spray and pray, which is fine. But they understand that they need to iterate really quickly. And so it's looking at what do you iterate and when. Is it your targeting, who you're going after, the companies, the personas, whatever? Is it the messaging? Is it both? Is it one then the other? You need to understand where you are in order to actually create a plan of how you're going to get to where you're trying to go. So understanding what is not working, the bottom 10, 20%, cut it immediately, right? If something's a 40, 50% range, maybe we can workshop it. If you have one thing that's outperforming, take that and run, double down.
I have one more thing on what's not working, just to double tap on that. Please take the one word templates out of your sequences, which is thoughts, ? No, do not do that. And also, do not try to guilt me into taking a meeting with you because of all the attempts that you've made to try to get in touch with me. Guess what? The reason that I'm not getting in touch with you is your message hasn't resonated with me. I'm not interested, so I'm not going to respond to your request for a meeting after 5 attempts. Don't tell me that you've sent me 5 emails. Yeah. I can see them in my Gmail window. I can see all the things. I've never responded to one. I'm not going to take this one just by guilt.
It's a hard job, but some of those emails, it's like they're challenging you to a fight.
Yeah.
Right?
Deliver me value every single time. If you sent me 5 valuable emails, guess what? My personal guilt might make me take a meeting with you if the 5 emails have been valuable. But if the second one is thoughts, ? Immediate delete.
Charlie's huge too. You don't want to challenge him to a fight.
What's worse, thoughts or bumping this up?
Oh God, they're the same.
Yeah.
That's not as bad as, did you get my email?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got your email. The internet still works, so I still got the email.
Yeah. If you're using a sales engagement technology like Mixmax or whatever, you can see I got your email. I opened it because I open emails. I like to read them. I'm a student of the craft. Yeah. I like to read great ones, and sometimes I respond to great ones. But I've never responded to a guilty message.
Not yet. Yeah. Maybe that other Kyle
See you
Parrish
after happy hour.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was fantastic.